Your rights, your lifestyle, your motorcycle is under attack. And this is part of this convention, meeting of the minds, bringing us all together one more time, one more year, with everything that's happening out there. BMW, EPA, NHTSA, all of these initials are coming at us and coming at us individually, coming at us collectively. We draw the line, we hold the line, and we can do it with each other, with our industry, with the individuals up here. You've got their bios in the program. I will introduce them one at a time. You know one of the guys at the end, that's Hardtail. Chris Callen, probably the last of the real motorcycle magazines still being published, is blessing us with his busy presence. Bob K, industry, enthusiast, industry entrepreneur, industry builder, inventor, all of those things that go into making our lifestyle, our motorcycles, and our reality real. Starting with Hardtail. What do you see is the most concerning threat to our way of life today?
Okay, so you heard some of this. I saved some of yesterday for today. I do want to make sure we understand that we have two of the most powerful people in the entire aftermarket industry, not just nationally, but worldwide. Okay, so again, check out their bio, but I'm really pleased that they're here and that we can share the stage, because we can tell each other, but if we don't get this out to those shops, that we need to partner with us, and I know Bob will talk more about it, so will Chris, but we've got to do some work on our end too, right? We'll do the legislative work, but we're also about educating folks. So biggest threats, obviously BMW, shutting down all operations, no new bike sales, no used bike sales, with no notice. Dealers had no advance notice. There was rumors, okay, we believe it's emission related, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they're going to continue selling electric bikes. And I don't think the timing of what they've just decided to stop selling all their bikes because of components potentially failing in the emissions train, I don't believe that's a coincidence. Maybe it is, I don't believe it is. But what's our biggest threats? So I was able to meet with the Federation of Europe International Motorcyclists, which operate out of Geneva, Switzerland. And I talked to the FEMA guys, which is the Federation of European Motorcyclists Association. So that's like the MRF. They have, they're an overarching envelope from all the European countries. So in real time, just last week, I asked them about end-of-life directives. Motorcycles are included in end-of-life directives, meaning at some point in time, you turn your old motorcycles back in. Is it based on age, mileage, inspection? Who knows? But the threat exists. And you turn your parts in as well. Okay? So far, they've been able to exempt motorcycles older than 30 or 35 years, to be determined. Okay? How many of us have motorcycles older than 30, 35 years? Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm with you. How many have newer bikes than 35 years old? Those bikes are at risk. Maybe not 2023, although I'll have an issue with those in a minute. But they're at risk, okay? The latest that the motorcyclists, our partners in Europe, have been able to come up with is, well, let's build it towards not a date on the calendar or an inspection, which will be expensive, or a certain amount of mileage. Well, let's put it in the, if it costs more to fix it than it's worth, you can't fix it. How in the heck is that going to be determined? Who's going to determine that? Or am I going to determine it? Because suddenly my knuckle became worth $250,000, so I can fix it forever. Right? And actually, if you go to the Mecum auctions, maybe it is worth that much. I don't know. Right? So that's a concern. I've had people tell me, well, we won't take people's vehicles. Anybody remember something under the Obama administration called cash for clunkers? Yeah. People readily surrendered older vehicles for a few bucks. Where did those cars go? Not back on the market. Okay, so it's been socialized in the United States already. Cash for clunkers, end of life. Alright, so that's there. We stay very, very close with Europe to find out what they're doing. I think it's a better strategy to say, what's it worth? Versus end of life on a date or an inspection or whatever. So that's the best they've gotten to this point. But when they're classed, right, when those end of life directive motorcycles are in a class, then what do? Well, you can only ride them on Sundays. You can't ride them in the city of London, which is fact. Okay? You can't ride them on certain motorways at certain times. So it's starting. And the more we class those vehicles to preserve them, the more at risk they become. Okay, so end-of-life directives, real thing. Okay, more related to what these guys are up here for is what we're facing as users and guys that fix the bikes we ride, or us that fix our own, where we get the parts. They're talking about certifying parts. Who certifies them? How are they certified? Who pays for that certification? That's all unknown. Can you take your 1990 Evolution, which they built millions of them, and take it into a Harley shop and get it fixed? In a lot of cases, absolutely not. You might not even get a twin cam fixed in some shops these days. Okay? Right to repair. Who's going to repair those bikes? The right to repair them. The parts are under threat. We've got motorcycles. There's guys in this room that have 2023 motorcycles. I won't name the brand. That if you change the pipes and the air cleaner, there's not a tune available for that motorcycle. I'll say it. HarleyDavidson isn't offering tune-ups for all of the models that they produced in 2023. 2024, they're talking about less ability to tune a motorcycle. Our ability to customize our motorcycles are gone. Who rides a bone stock motorcycle here? A couple guys. I mean, okay, a couple guys. I expected that. A couple ladies, whatever. But the industry, the heritage of what we do, America, customizing motorcycles, making them different. Look at Chris's magazine, not a page in there. I don't think there's a stock motorcycle unless there's an ad in there. Okay? That's an entire industry. It's us. It's our movement. It's what we do. Okay? So, end-of-life directives. Can we repair our bikes? Can we get parts? Will the manufacturers even allow us to change them? Okay? Look at what's in front of you. Pretty simple. That's what we're facing. Internal combustion engine bans. Some countries have already banned internal combustion engines. Some say 2030 to 2025. Some say 50% by 2035. Several states have signed up for the California Air Resources Board model that says no more ICE, can't make them, can't sell them. If that doesn't send an absolute shock throughout your body, and we should be telling everybody that that's coming. That's not for fun. That's not pretend. It's right on our doorstep. Okay? Certified parts, end of life, right to repair bikes, the end of the internal combustion engine. What happens to us, if any, God forbid, any of these things happen? So I'll turn it over to these guys, and they can tell you in real life how it affects their segments of the industry and what they're involved in and how they're helping us, and we're going to help them. So thank you.
Bob? Yeah, thank you. Having been in the industry for 40 years, aftermarket primarily, you've heard Hardtail's concerns. From your standpoint, industry standpoint, how does it affect you and the rest of us?
Well, in more ways than you realize, but before I answer that, I'd just like to say first, I'm humbled to be here. You guys have been doing so much for our industry and our rights for all these years that I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, that you guys live what we you know, what we live, and thank you very much for that. So, how does it affect us? In more ways than you can realize. So let's start with the OEM manufacturers, Honda, Harley, all those guys. Their motivation is not the culture, not the lifestyle that we have. Their motivation is profits. So they're profit driven. They have board of directors. They have you know, people that invest in them, stock markets that watch what they do. So they're going to voluntarily comply. Plain and simple. That's what they're going to do. That's why, as Hardtail was saying, they're not doing any of these tubes that we have available, that we've had available to us in the past. So what does that mean for their dealerships? Well, their dealerships are going to voluntarily comply. So it just runs right on down the deal, and that's going to leave us out. And there's so many people that don't really understand what's going on. I was at the smokeout in North Carolina with Chris a couple weeks ago. I just came back from Arkansas up there. We had the Bike Blues and Barbecue. I drove in last night. I drove home back to Texas, got on a plane to come here. To tell you guys, I've been out visiting dealerships since Sturgis when we had our meeting, and the IMA that we're going to talk about some more has become a reality. And thank you again, the MRF, for making us be part of your organization. The dealers don't know. They don't really have an idea. The guys that are my age and have been doing this for 50 years, they go, well, I've been doing this my whole life, so fuck them, I'm going to keep doing it this way. Well, you know, it ain't going to happen like that. The young guys, they're so busy day to day just trying to get parts, trying to deal with everything, they have no idea what's going on with this. So I go in and I talk to them, I explain to them, and they're like, well, really? And I go, yes, really. So one of the things I need to do is really recruit everybody in this room as disciples of the IMA, our new independent motorcycle aftermarket, to get this word out, how serious this really is. Now, how does it affect some of the businesses? I have friends that just maybe 5 years ago started making the tuners more available for us, more easy for us to tune bikes. They've been threatened with $1 million fines from the EPA. Employees have been called and told, you better not help these shops. And so what do? They drop out of the business. So it's one of the best tuners available that we've had out there is no longer available. Some of the other companies are compliant. They're only going to make pipes with cats in them. We're not going to have free-flowing pipes. We're not going to be able to do what we want to do. I've been telling these guys, listen, if you don't think this is real and you don't join this IMA and start to support us, well, you better figure out how to put A-hangers on your e-bike, because that's what it's going to end up being, you know, and it's really serious. I, for one, don't plan on riding around on an e-bike. There's just so much going on, and we need to get out there and just kind of get this word out to everybody. This independent motorcycle aftermarket that Chris got me involved in, I thought I was going to retire after COVID and all that. My wife was able to retire, so we were planning on doing some traveling, and he put together this podcast and said, hey, Bob, in the middle of the podcast, everybody listening, you got to help us out with this deal. You know a lot of people. So the next thing I know, here I am doing this. But we had our first meeting in Daytona. We had about 50 shops show up. You know, there's some interest, things going on. We had another meeting in Sturgis with the help of Fred and Hardtail. This became real. We helped them put together the applications and everything we need to do to get the word out for this. So this really is a big deal. It's affecting everything we do. It's affecting our lifestyle more than anything else. You know, I worship at the altar of internal combustion, and I'm sure everybody here does too. And it's the EPA is coming after us, and they're blaming it all on the climate and this and that. That's really not the concern that they have. They want to control what we do. We are all independent people. We think the way we want, we do what we want, we ride the way we want. We don't really care what's going on. That's their main objective. And if they get their way, these laws are going to be passed faster and sooner than you can ever blink your eye at. So listening to everybody, what we've accomplished in the past, I have served on state boards, the depositions and different things like that over the years. It's more important now than ever before that we get out there and protect our lifestyle and allow the industry to grow. There isn't half the parts being made. when I started out in this deal back in 1971, it was all about building parts, growing things. With Nemco and Custom Chrome, we would come out with new parts all the time, get them out there, make things happen. You look at what's coming out for new parts these days, it's just minimal. And we can't really count on Harley-Davidson. The truth of the matter is Harley, other than the original bikes that they've come out with and given us something to work with, they've never invented anything for the aftermarket. I love Willie G, he's a good friend of mine, but 1971, he came out with a Street Glide, and that was such a big deal with a custom bike from Harley. We've been putting sports to front ends on bikes and taking the floorboards off long before Willie G ever did that 71. And I can tell you multiple stories right on down the line. The innovation comes from the aftermarket. It comes from guys like Dave Perowitz and Arlen Ness and Donnie Smith. And we need new people to do that. The young guys, Fred talked about the guys that are half our age, you know, the millennials, 35-year-old guys. Yes, it's important that we get them involved, and I don't see a whole lot of them here. I don't see a whole lot of them going around everywhere. Some of the events, thanks to Chris, we had a good turnout of some, you know, younger people at the smokeout, but it also gets back to the grandkids too. I got a 4-year-old grandson, he's got a Stasic, he does wheelies, he does burnouts, you know, he's got a little plastic Harley engine he's working on. You gotta do that. You gotta spend time with your grandkids and get them involved. That's where it starts. It can't just be the next generation down or the generation after that. They come out in this world, you gotta get them on 2 wheels, and it's just so important that we protect what we have here.
Thank you, thank you. This is a message that you need to take home to your friends, to your favorite shop, to your Harley dealer. They need to hear this. Chris, you've run a successful podcast, been doing this a long time. I've seen your videos, and you see this from a magazine standpoint. I know you got lead time, but you see this from a putting on shows, talking to guys and women putting on building custom bikes. What do you see based on what Hardtail and Bob are seeing from your standpoint?
You know, first of all, I want to thank everybody for having us here. This is like Bob said, tremendous honor. You know, I've been involved in motorcycle my whole life. You know, starting off, I can say thank you to all my buddies from Pennsylvania A-Bait, getting me hooked on motorcycles and motorcycle traditions and stuff at a way early age at Hazen and all the way up through what I'm doing today. But I almost feel like the first thing I need to do is apologize, because part of what I'm seeing is a lack of awareness. You know, and that really comes down to me, you know, failing to do my job all these 27 years running this magazine and doing the videos like he said. That's my failure, because you guys are doing the work. You're there, you're pounding the pavement, you're getting stuff done. Not enough of this message is making it to the street level. Not enough people care about this stuff the way that it's always been. You know, and that goes back through the whole message here of how do we get to this point that the gentleman from New Hampshire was saying. How did we get here? You know, on the other side of this, how did we get to a point where the things that have always mattered to us don't seem to matter as much? You know, and that's really what's at stake here. Because if you think of in the 70s, motorcycle rights, the motorcycle rights movement, if someone stood in opposition of our freedom, I know guys, some of them may be in this room right now. One of them was supposed to be on stage with us. They would have literally burnt the Capitol building to the ground. And I'm not saying that's necessarily. I'm not saying that that's a recipe for how we handle things today, necessarily, but it's an example of how passionate we were about our freedom, you know, and somewhere we got disconnected from that. You know, we started through words like voluntary compliance, one piece at a time. We started giving up pieces of that freedom, a little bit here and a little bit there. And it's, you know, in trade, they were giving us basically trinkets. We could get it faster and more of it and more convenient. Things were done for us, and you don't have to worry about this. And, you know, all the way up to the point that we have motorcycles that practically drive themselves anymore. I'll go back to You know, put me back on a shovel head that I have to wrench on a little bit if you give me all the freedom back that goes along with that time period. All right, I love my shovel head too, I do, and I'll tell you the biggest thing, man, and I said this for anybody that was in Sturgis. I was blessed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, and that's because of the stories that I tell from all the people in these rooms. You know, it's definitely not for me. I was a high school dropout, had a sordid past myself until I found my way to motorcycling. When I got there, I found a group of guys that taught me respect and honor, and they passed on values and traditions, and, you know, in short, they taught me what it was to be a man. That's what I learned through this culture. That's what's at stake at losing this culture. And we're not just talking about, just so you understand the big picture of all this, we're not talking about losing just the right to repair. We're not talking about losing the right to put your favorite tuner on or, you know, get your favorite motorcycle work on. This erodes at the very foundation of what this culture is about. Like from the bottom up, it starts to remove the pieces that make us care, that make us think about where all this goes, think about the freedoms that we're giving up. And again, I apologize because my job of getting more of this message out, I feel like I've failed it a little bit because not enough people on the street know this.
Do you see as a, media person, the younger guys building bikes with attitude, you've got Born Free and a couple of other big events. What are you seeing, and what are you seeing as their engagement in the lifestyle that we've lived from your standpoint and the media standpoint?
You know, I think a lot of them are 110% in, but, you know, this is part of a larger conversation too, because of the way media is delivered today and the things that are important to this new generation. It's not the same as when I was a young guy. I would literally sit patiently and wait for the old guys to tell me when it was okay to do something, when it was okay, where I was supposed to ride. The guys that are coming up now, they're not like that. There's a whole different media landscape that's out there. The way they get their information, what they feel is important, the way they communicate with each other, completely different thing today. You know, so it's a kind of a Rubik's Cube when you start to think about how to reach out to these people and how to get them to care about the same things that we do. But at the end of the day, the same things are at stake. They came into motorcycling looking for something. That's how we all got here. We were all searching for a little more than what regular life would provide us with. And that's when I talk about this stuff, we were out in the hall talking about this earlier. That's really what goes on here, you know, all the way back to 1947, after the Hollister rally and the famous quote about only 1% of motorcyclists, you know, want to live under antisocial behavior. You know, this is where, for me, they drew a line in the sand and said that some of us are not like the others. And some of us fit in to the mold that society has for us, and some of us don't. And for me, that was a badge of honor. You know, I walked around with that proudly that, yeah, I don't fit into regular society. I don't want the regular 2.5 car garage, couple kids, 9-to-5 job. I don't want any of that. I want to hit the road. I want to go check things out. I want to be with my brothers. I want to have a good time. I want more freedom. And that's same thing exists with young people that are out there doing this stuff today. The only thing they don't understand is how hard the people in this room fought to give it to us. You know, the same as when we're out at these national events, we talk all the time about thanking service members for the rights and the privileges that we have to do all this all across the country, these great parties and rides and rallies we go to. But really, the motorcycle rights activists are the people that give us the right to continue to do this the way that we do it on the motorcycles that we do. And that's what's got to be reinforced. And they have to start understanding that there's people every day putting these issues and these concerns ahead of what personally comes up in their own lives.
What role do you see the media playing? I mean, you're in it, you meet with your peers. What role do you see them playing as getting more of us, more of the younger generations involved?
You know, again, with my apology at the beginning of this, I think we're all failing that. I mean, you know, I'm as guilty as the next guy. We get super busy, stuff comes across our desk. You know, I'll take press releases that you guys send and I'll push them out and I'll republish stuff, but that's not entirely the way to do it. Like I said, the media landscape has changed. The way communication happens has changed. So you have to look for opportunities like, you know, we do our Shop Talk show on Sundays, you know, and it's an interactive kind of podcast, multicast deal. And it's one of those opportunities. A lot of the young guys are doing podcast stuff now. You know, a lot of the social media exchange of information that goes on. You have to start finding those ways, those opportunities to communicate on a level that people are already accepting information. You know, it's not the same traditional, like my news feed that comes into the email or the stuff that I see in magazines. You really have to be on all fronts.
Scary answer, but it's real. It's real.
Hey, and listen, it's a lot of work, man. I mean, you know, I don't have to tell any of you guys that, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because if you could see the amount of media that's going across the airwaves, across social media right now, if you could see it above your head, it would black out the sun. Literally black out the sun. There's so much information going past. So if your participation in social media is to throw up one piece, and it's gone. You got to be both hands, throwing it up constantly, finding ways to get that message up and keep it going, so that it has a chance to participate and be a part of the entire stream that's going by, because it's every second of the day, man. It never stops anymore.
Every second of the day. Bob, you've seen this. I mean, you're probably close to my age. You've seen it from the 60s, the 70s. Based on what you're doing, the IMA, and what Chris is saying, what Hardtail is saying, what do you see how we can work together and get even stronger than what we are working toward?
Well, I think one of the basic things, kind of back to what Chris was saying, is there's a general lack of respect in young people today for the history. I've seen it on the backs of some of you guys' shirts and stuff like that. When I started, you know, I was 20 years old, going to my first Cincinnati show in 19 Cincinnati, and got guys like Arlen Ness and Mel Magnet from Rivera. Those guys, I mean, they sat me down, I listened to everything they had to say. Took the time to appreciate their experience. I've gone in, I've talked to some of these shows, you know, like this, Born Free, and talked to some of these guys, and they go, well, and I think maybe it's because of all the media, social media stuff. Well, I know everything. I've looked at all this stuff. So personally, with our family, so if I can teach my grandson how to have respect for the past. You know, when I grew up, my grandfather's 1929 JD was the Holy Grail. I started at 10 years old, you know, it's in that bio thing. A couple guys pulled in to talk to my father about some guns, and a couple panheads. They had their white shirts rolled up and their engineer boots, and they pulled in, and I was just like, holy shit, man, I want to do that. And I never lost that, and you don't see that anymore. There's so much stuff going on. So teaching that respect is really basic. So in terms of the IMA, independent dealers, to me, have always been the basis of our industry. I had my first shop in 1974. We were actually doing Japanese choppers, because the Harley guys wouldn't do it. The Honda shops, they never did that. You know, I was a kid, it was a way to make money. I kind of filled that thing in there for a little while. I had a Sportster with an 18-inch over girder at the time, too, so running down the street like a rubber band. It wasn't the best bike, but got a lot of chicks, you know, so. But those kind of, the stories, you know, I had thousands of miles on the road, and just doing those repairs on the road, you know, you talk about shovelhead, I love that. That was a big part of it. Something breaks down and you're making it happen, and you go to the Tractor Supply and ask if anybody's got a welding shop because you got to put your pipes back together or something, and they open up their shop to you. I mean, I can go on and on about the stories of people that have helped us on the road. That's not there anymore. That's kind of lost. They go there and they want to be crazy. They look at the crazy things that we did and they try to emulate that. But there was more that we learned from the respect and everything. So again, just coming back from Arkansas, like I said, I got into the Bites, Blues, and Barbecue going on in Arkansas, and we had a little industry party going on Thursday night. So I went around to all the shops to invite them and have them come over. We were doing some barbecue and stuff. They didn't have a clue, mostly, for what's going on. So we need to get that word out. These little flyers that Paulette's prepared for us, they're fantastic, yeah. What's on the back there? You gotta show these around. Everybody's gotta get some of these, go to your shops and talk to them. And so, because here's the deal. Right now, like you're saying, you can't get a bike worked on that's over 10 years old. In some case, we were in Sturgis this year, a buddy of mine had a flat tire, had a wall tire, wanted to get a new tire, he had a 95 bagger, real nice, clean piece of equipment. Went over to J&P Cycles, they wouldn't put a tire on. They said, well, it might need some other parts. I said, what other parts is it gonna need? Some brake pads? You're selling in your store right in the front. But it's this attitude. This attitude is really, really scary. Most of these shops, like the Harley shops and these big Honda shops, they're owned by automotive people, conglomerates right now. They're not known by, individuals like Farrell that started it, and Monty's in West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, Kay there doing the job, and all these people that did it for the same reasons that we all do it for the passion that we love. We gotta get that passion explained and back out there again. So getting that word out, making people understand, being able to customize bikes. They don't want to, this is a battle that's been going on for a while, customizing bikes. I don't have a stock bike in I got 20 bikes in the barn, there isn't a stock bike. There's always doing things. That's the part of it. That's what drives us, being independent. But that's also what scares the establishment, for lack of a better word. They don't like that independence. They want us to fall in line. The current ruling government thinks they know better for us than we know for ourselves. Well, excuse me, but fuck them, We have to stand tall. We really do. So that the whole purpose of the independent motorcycle aftermarket is not just independent dealers. When Chris first came to me, and a lot of these independent dealers are struggling and having a hard time, they said, we need an independent dealer association. Well, I've worked with SEMA in the past, with Keith and different people, Hardtail, we're at some of those meetings, trying to get them to represent us as independent dealers. I actually did a little stint with the MIC, running some shows for them, trying to make them understand their part. They do good stuff. But don't get me wrong, the AMA, the MIC, they do stuff that's good for us as motorcyclists, but they're not going to take care of our culture. They're not going to take care of independent dealer shops. And that's why we came up with the IMA. Now, why it doesn't say independent dealers, it says independent motorcycle aftermarket? Because there's other culture-related companies, people that do apparel, people that just put on events, the guys that go to all our different rallies and sell cigars and sell different things. That's all part of our culture. And that's as important as anything. That's really the most important thing. And that's what we want to keep alive with the IMA.
Tell me something about, this didn't just come out of a vacuum. We've been working with the industry one way or the other all these years, and you guys got together in Daytona. Tell me something about your founding members, how this interrelates. You can't speak for them, but you can tell us a little bit about them.
Well, and again, it's just everybody, when they start getting infringed, their rights and their ability to do their job. I've been on talking with these dealers. The big scare right now is, obviously internal combustion engines. God, we need internal combustion engines, but the ability to modify them, starting with the engine, doing the tuning. Now that we have, nobody wanted fuel injection when I was in this deal. I love carburetors, the S&S carburetor is the easiest thing to work on. You can fix it going down the road, but hey, the reality is a lot of things have fuel injection now, so to make them work better, which, it's really kind of silly, because you tune a bike the right way, you modify it, it actually runs cleaner. If, Keith was able to make it here today, he would tell you a cow's fart is much worse than any motorcycle in terms of emissions. And that's the truth, so it really isn't about emissions or anything, but what's happening is, these guys, 40%, 50% of the business is putting on exhaust, cams, and intake. Everybody does that for starters. That's what's being threatened. You take away 40, 50% of a small shop business, how are they gonna survive? So people started talking. Chris could probably talk a little bit more, because he actually put together the original podcast, and I'll let him discuss that. And they got me involved in it. I said, yeah, okay, I'll be in there, and we're talking and stuff like that. And it was a great podcast. We had some, Stevenson was on it, John Jessup from Dream, he's one of the newer, younger guys. And their business is gonna be just cut out and taken away from them. That business gets cut. A lot of us have the ability to work on our own bikes, and do it. A lot of us don't. So you can't go to a Harley dealer, you can't go to a Honda dealer. If there's no independent dealer market around, what are we gonna do? And that's, you understand, that's where they're trying to take our legs out from underneath us. So we had this podcast, we had a great response to it. The meeting in Daytona, Chris put that together, little pizza place there, they treated us really good. We had about 50 dealers show up. I was really impressed. I did a little talk, kind of explaining what we're talking about today. And they said, well, let's keep going. In the meantime, Kirk was there. We said, okay, we got to start to formalize this. So I started working with Kirk. What do we do for press releases? How do we get where does it fit in with the MRF? You know, and what I was talking about with the MIC and SEMA and these other people is they didn't get it. And again, they're kind of focused on dollars. They're not focused on the lifestyle and the culture. I knew the MRF was the only way. I said, we can't go out and start a new organization. People have no idea what it costs to have a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. It's not $1,000, trust me. You know, it's big money, and then the organization. The MRF was there for us, and they welcomed us with open arms. So that's why we're here today. And again, I can't thank all you guys enough for having us come and be part of the MRF.
Thank you. Chris, you want to elaborate on the, from your standpoint, the founding and how, I mean, you saw it with the podcast, you must have been inspired some way getting these guys together.
I was angry at first, you know, because here I am, we put a selection of our friends together who all had small shops, these small shops have families, you know, not just the owner and his family, the people that work there, their families, hardworking people that come in there to get their motorcycle fixed. All of these people are affected by what goes on here. And all in one swoop, in this last rash of EPA bullshit that goes on, these guys are told that they're going to lose between 30 and 50% of their daily business. You know, all in one broad stroke. Tuner licenses are disappearing. So we had a show just to have a round table to start talking about it. And the amount of outrage and passion that was there really, it struck all of us. Like, we gotta do something more with this. We gotta take this somewhere, because I don't know if you guys all see this the same way that we do, but the small shops are disappearing. They're, you know, in my own hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, when I started Cycle Source 27 years ago, there were 14 Harley-Davidson dealers and 36 aftermarket shops in a 100-mile radius of Pittsburgh. I think today, maybe there's 6 or 7 of those Harley dealers left, and maybe 4 aftermarket shops. You know, and that's not because any bullshit about, you know, financial trend and, you know, the onset of social media and people's different, it comes down to one thing. They have made this a pain in the ass, period. The EPA, and I'll say this first of all, this may be my own opinion. I don't have anything concrete to back this up, but as far as I'm concerned, the EPA by definition is a subversion of the Constitution. Anything that comes out of that, it's hard to, I know we have to take it seriously because that's what we're faced with, and they make sure that we take it serious by threatening us with fines that will put us into non-existence. But the truth is, we have let a body of appointed officials make rules to govern people of this country who are guaranteed by the Constitution to only be governed by elected officials, by laws passed by elected officials. So I don't have a lot of love for the EPA to begin with, and when you go through their track record of what they've done, systematically they have come after motorcycling. And there's good reason. We are low-hanging fruit. It's easy to take on the small guy, beat the shit out of him, and show everybody else that you can win a fight, right? So that's what they're gonna do. They know that we're without resources, and they made sure of this back in the early 2000s when they set us up for failure with the whole EPA changes that went on. We had giant summits where we sat down with them, literally, leaders of our industry sat down and worked out details of voluntary compliance and CERT programs and how we could work with them to ensure that our industry was gonna move forward. They decimated the aftermarket. The performance aftermarket took a hit like never before in motorcycling. Almost completely went out of business, and many, many friends that Bob's had for a lifetime, that I've had for a lifetime, closed up their shops and it was over. It's the same thing we're starting to face here again today. And this doesn't even just end there. I wish I could tell you that. But even when you go to the other side of the line, where motorcycling starts, where did motorcycling start for most of us? Dirt bikes, mini bikes, the lot of it, right? Where it used to be a time, and I'm getting a little older now that I can say, back in the day, but yeah, I don't feel like a kid all the time. But there used to be a time where, for a father and a son or a father and a daughter, a whole family to participate in motorcycling, they could head out to the AMA district racetrack. And for relatively short money, they could celebrate the sport of motorcycle racing. It was two-stroke motors. If something happened to the motor, pretty much for $60 at the track, you could fix the bike and get your kid back out on the track. It was a very blue-collar centric scenario. Well, again, in the early 2000s, again, through the cooperation and pleasing directives of the EPA, they decided that two-stroke motorcycles were dirty, they were dangerous to the environment, they were dangerous to the ecosystem, and in one fell swoop, they switched over to four-stroke, and all of a sudden, the blue-collar working-class family that could take their kids to the racetrack couldn't afford to be there anymore. Because that same top end, now instead of being $60 and you could fix it at the track, was $1,500 to $2,000, and you couldn't be there anymore. There is a deterioration of the inroads of bringing kids. We're sitting here talking about how to get the next generation involved. They're already figuring out how to keep the next generation from even coming in. And it all comes down to one thing, man: ravenous capitalism. Without naming any names or anything, like Bob said, it's the business of these big manufacturers to sell motorcycles, period. That is their whole deal. And not just once. They want to sell you a new motorcycle every 5 years for the rest of your life. They want to make sure that they are the only solution to give you your personal best, most perfect motorcycle. So you keep coming back and get it from them. You don't waste your time with aftermarket or building custom or doing anything else. Well, unfortunately, there's a whole part of this culture that goes along with all of that. The values and the traditions that are passed on in the shops. The stuff that we learn about each other and about ourselves on the road when we have trouble. All of that goes along with it, so a lot more at stake, and they know it. They know it, man. This is all part of the thing. I actually did some homework coming into this. I had no idea there was a definition that represented what's actually happening here, but it turns out that it's called cultural imperialism. That's heavy, right, for this early in the morning. I know. I had to read it a couple of times so I could remember it to come here. But cultural imperialism is when one culture invades another culture by influencing them through their values, through their traditions, through their trends, what they do, where they go, how they communicate. Cultural imperialism, literally taking over another culture. And if you think about what I said earlier when I was talking about how somehow we don't care about things the same way anymore. Somehow the things that were important to my generation, to his generation, they're less important today. It's through this assimilation of another culture, a culture that wasn't contrived from the gasoline lifestyle that we grew up with, the hot rod culture that was post-war America. That was where all this came from, man. That celebration is the very root of Americana. It's the reason we call it the Great American Freedom Machine. And it's being taken from us without us even realizing it. We're trading it away one piece at a time for faster, better, easier. And it's a shame.
Thank you. Thank you. You get it. Bob gets it. We all get it. What, as industry leaders, media influencers, rights activists, what can we do as an organization, as a media influencer? What can we do to inform your peers, our peers, to the dangers that are out there that motorcycling is under attack?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize this, but
It's all right.
just real quick, what I said again about finding those opportunities, go be on the podcast with the young guys. Go find them. Hey, what do we have to do to get MRF on your podcast, or whatever the name of your SMRO is that you're part of? Go find them. Go participate where they're at, what they're doing. Be part of what they're doing. You know what I mean? These rooms, like Bob said, they're not here. So the job is to take everything that's learned here and take it out there. But one of the things I think we need to do when we get there is fly a giant flag of zero voluntary compliance. If they're going to pull this shit on us, it has to be a fight at every single turn. They have to know that it's going to be a fight for every single inch. We can never again do what we did back in the early 2000s with what they did with the EPA and the performance industry. We can never give them an inch of ground again. We have to take lessons of the original freedom fighters that put all this shit together and do whatever it takes, sit on the Capitol steps, have a party there for a month, but show them that we're not willing to back down not one single inch. Because I'll tell you what, and this is, again, what Keith Ball would have told us all if he was here today, and I invite you all to go to bikernet.com, because the man is a library of information when it comes to EPA. Absolute valuable treasure chest of information you will get from his site. But what he would have said is the problem with the EPA is nothing that they have going on is backed in real science. No one puts them to the test. No one makes them prove it. They have government bullies that push their shit through without asking a single question. We have got to be that question. We have to do that. We have to make them prove it every single turn.
All right, so like I said, start with your family. Your grandkids, your children, make sure they understand why you do what you do, why you are who you are, and pass that tradition on. I learned from my grandfather, my father, that they were my heroes growing up, and you should be the hero of everybody in your family. And then like Chris said, go out and go to some of these events. It's a little awkward sometimes, even for me sometimes, with what's going on, but go there and talk. And sometimes they're going to piss you off. They're going to say, oh, it doesn't matter what you did when you were a kid or all that, but go there anyways and do that. And like Sherman said, be careful of little things they give you to appease you. We were at a conference, I think I was with Kirk back around 2002, maybe it was at Cincinnati when we were talking about this whole thing with the engines, and there was a company that wanted to have a certified engine, and everybody would say, oh, okay, well, that's the way for us to do it. We'll have one company with one certified engine. And I stood up, I said, wait a minute, that's not right. We want to be able to build our engines the way we want them. Everybody has different things they want to do. Some guys want them to run reliable, run wrong. Some guys want them to run really strong, on a quarter mile. So we want to be able to build it the way we want. So we got to be careful, because they're going to try to appease us with little things along the way and then come around the back. So we need to fight. We need to understand. You need to look at these things on this card that Kurt's talking about, the threats we have. The threats are real. And, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around, but I want to ride till the day I die, And I want my kids to ride, and I want, my grandchildren to ride. This is an important, it's a heritage. I'm a third generation Harley rider. I got a fifth generation Harley rider coming up. And everybody does in this room. So it's real important that we get out there, we get involved, even when it's uncomfortable, even when some of these little wise punks are out there doing their stuff. Teach them, let them know why they're riding those choppers. And what's behind that? Why you want to get on a hardtail at 63 years old and ride across the country like I did. You're freaking crazy, But I got a little beat up, but I got that story to tell now, and it was a great story along the way. We need to pass on those stories too. Those stories that you had growing up, that when you broke down why it was so important. You know, Harley had come out with their first electronic ignition from Magnavox, and it was a piece of shit. It just didn't work. Anybody knows that the shovel heads back then, yeah, they did not work at all. I always carried around a points plate. You know, and we'd be there at midnight, they'd be at a show, and somebody'd break down, and go, here you go, buddy. You know, like, those kind of things, you know, they don't want that kind of stuff now. They just want, like you said, every 5 years, I want you to buy what they think is a new bike, what they think you want. It's not what we want.
Hardtail.
Incredible information. What we've been saying is in front of us in real life. Okay, so what do? I'm gonna read something. I don't write a lot of things down, but I wrote something down. We have to stay strong and united at this point in our history, or we'll have no future history. Sherm said that just this morning. What did we learn yesterday? We are purpose-built for this time in our history. NCOC, NCOM, AMA, MRM, Independent Motorcycle Association. What are we going to do about this as a group? We have an agenda. Motorcycle Riders Foundation, along with everybody in this room yesterday, came up with our federal agenda. It's strong, and it's strong specifically into what we're talking about now. Because all the other things, I can ride without a sideways license plate. I can ride without a blue dot tail light. I can even, maybe, ride without 8-fingers. But I can't ride with no motorcycle. Okay? And it's a little funny when Bob was talking about his springy chopper he rode 60 years ago. I saw him riding in the Sturgis this year on the same thing. With the front wheel bouncing, so that was kind of fun. So what are we gonna do? We have an incredibly strong agenda. We have an incredibly strong force that's been purpose-built for this moment in time. This didn't come willy-nilly, this didn't come without work. A lot of people from every organization I mentioned put time, sweat, and blood into this to be here at this point in time. Let us not miss this opportunity with what we've built. Mark has put together a marketing team. How are we gonna get this to more than a few thousand people? How are we gonna get this out to 700,000, 800,000, 1 million? How are we gonna get the influencers? I think my son could tell me what an influencer is, right? They're everywhere. I have a good friend who's about my age that watches those, doesn't have much of a life apparently. He's got 2 dogs, a couple motorcycles, and he watches every single influencer thing out there. And he can tell me everybody who's good at what they do. He watches all the podcasts. But go on podcasts. But what's our job? So what do we do with what we've built? It's our job in our newsletters, and in our communications, in our emails, in our phone calls, in our conversations at the bar, our conversations at the clubhouse, our conversations at the smokeouts, to talk about what you heard today and what we need to do about it. It's bigger than an internal combustion engine, right? You heard heritage, you heard lifestyle, our birthright, our constitutional right in some cases. So our job is not to go home and go, dang. Our job is to get to work. Our clubs, our SMROs, our national organizations, we have got to use every avenue we have to make sure that more than a few thousand people, more like 1 million, a couple million people get what's happening. If they don't get it or care, move on. But there are more people like us. And they're not going to get into this movement and do what we need them to do unless we tell them. They're not going to stumble upon it. They're going to have to be told, taught. Russell may have a different way to get involved. okay? But we have to get people involved into what you just heard, and that is the job of who is in this room and who we represent and what we represent. It is our job. Again, newsletters, podcasts, social media, email streams, phone calls. Where I live, smoke signals. It doesn't matter. We have to get the word out. And please, go support these shows that have choppers and have custom-built bikes. Be a part of it. Make sure people know that there's a reason we support what they're doing. Keep building. Keep fighting. That's the MRF's role, and that's our role. The MRF, as I said yesterday, is us. The MRF isn't the Motorcycle Riders Foundation. The MRF is us, our SMROs, NCOM, NCOCA, on and on, CORE, Motorcycle Pro, whatever. Anybody that can get into motorcycling and have some influence in some way has got to carry the message you just heard in this past 45 minutes. Otherwise, it doesn't work and we don't survive. And we don't survive, I don't know if I can survive. Okay?
Survival against attacks. And the attacks are not just hitting BMW. I work for Harley-Davidson, owned by motorcycle enthusiasts, not the motor company. And last November, I'm at our Utah store and emailed to the entire company, we have to cease and desist tuning bikes the way we were tuning. We had $40,000 worth of inventory of aftermarket product that we used to sell. People wanted Harleys that breathed better, ran better. That stuff was pulled off the shelf, pulled out of the showrooms, and locked up, and we were fortunate to be able to send it back to the manufacturer or to the distributor, and it is coming. Here is a mega dealership saying, we have to stop because a dealer in Utah got sued for a mega $1 million, and the suit was won because of pollution, because of EPA ruling. A band of doctors who didn't even ride motorcycles sued and took motorcycling to task. It is coming. It's coming from California. It's coming from states that want to emulate California. And it's coming from Europe. And if we don't draw the line, we don't hold the line, we're going to lose the line. These guys can sum this up better than I can on what they're going to do. Independent Motorcycle Association or Aftermarket Association, the media, our rights, they're all under attack. And I can't emphasize it. You guys know it. You ladies know it. The threat is not a threat anymore. It's an attack. Chris?
Oh, so here, let's do a little experiment real quick. How many people in the last week got an Amazon box? Right? Last month, got an Amazon box. You hear anybody complain about the impact of those boxes?
Yes. I have.
I haven't.
No, my husband.
I have heard about that because I was, I see those boxes piling up in the
Right.
recycling, and then not all that recycling gets recycled. But the point is, I have heard about that. And, you know, it was on NPR as a matter of
Well, there you go. So there's one. Now, comparatively, why motorcycles? Why not those boxes? The boxes come a box and a box and a box and a box. It's easy, it's quick, it's fast.
with
It
styrofoam
fits their
or
agenda.
plastic inside.
Yeah, with plastic inside. It fits their agenda, so nobody's complaining. Also, Amazon has a lot of money, so the federal government's not gonna want to fight Amazon, but they'll pick on us. You know, this is a good friend of mine not too long ago was going through some business struggles, and Brian Clark, actually, I'll give him a shout out. He said to me, you know, Chris, the devil doesn't have to beat you. He just has to distract you. You'll beat yourself. So that's the thing, is just, no matter what course of action you take, stay focused, Know what your mission is, know what your strengths are, stay focused, don't get distracted.
The four-wheel cage world is different than us. They don't care about customizing, they don't care about independence. The whole value of motorcycles, it represents us personally. Whether you just change the pipes and the handlebars or put some grips on, it's a personal expression of who you are. That cage world is infringing on us. They're starting to own the Harley shops. They're getting more involved with the government. This is real. We have a specific goal for Daytona next year to have 200 dealers attend our IMA meeting in Daytona. I really need your guys' help. We've had about 50, 60 dealers. We got to add another 150 dealers. Of course, we need them all to join the MRF through the IMA. If you can talk to people and get them to join right away, that is much appreciated. But if they don't really understand and you can't get that through, you can always have them contact me. I know Chris is available too. But if you can help us get 200 independent dealers for our IMA meeting in Daytona next year, my heart of appreciation goes out to you guys. Thank you again.
So having guys of this stature come to our meeting should be an indication of what we can do. I think you called us a legislative powerhouse, which I busted a backflip in Sturgis when you said that. That was a compliment, because we're not always talked to in that light. There's a lot of other words that get used for us. Powerhouse, imperative, some of those things are nice. So we're where we should be, right? And again, purpose built. We are purpose built for this time in our history. And I'm going to say it one more time because it's probably the coolest thing I've heard in a while. I'm going to read it. This could be on a shirt. We have to stay strong and united at this point in our history, or we'll have no future history. Can't say anything more compelling than that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting what we're trying to do at the shops, because what we do for the shops and what the shops do for us, we do for ourselves. Thank you.